Rival parties are stepping up the pace in their presidential primaries for the June election. The People Power Party held a roundtable to speak freely on the future of South Korea, while the Democratic Party contenders are set to face off in their first televised debate tonight. The air forces of South Korea and the United States are carrying out combined aerial drills as part of efforts to enhance joint defense readiness. U.S. President Donald Trump says a tariff agreement between Washington and Beijing is weeks away, which could end the escalating trade war between the world's two largest economies. This is the first time Trump has publicly revealed that the U.S. is in talks with China on tariffs. It's April 18th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Peunji. Partisan primaries are in full gear ahead of the election set for June 3rd. The People Power Party held a roundtable today with its presidential hopefuls, each speaking on the country's future. And later this evening, the Democratic Party's presidential contenders will face off in their first televised debate. Our political correspondent Shin-Young starts us off.
As the presidential election gets closer, both rival parties are stepping up the pace in their primaries. The People Power Party held a party vision presentation on Friday, where each primary presidential candidate had 9 minutes to speak freely on the theme of South Korea's future following a pre-drawn speaking order. One name that came up among all the contestants, including Kim Moon-soo, Han Dong-un, and Hong Jun-pyo, was Democratic Party frontrunner Lee Jae-myung, as each candidate claimed they were the one best positioned to defeat him. Ahead of the candidate's speech, the PPP floor leader also called for ways to stop wrongdoing by each political faction.
Candidates should explain how they plan to stop the wrongdoing of Lee Jae-myung's political faction if elected president. Please show that the PPP offers a more hopeful and better vision for South Korea than his.
The candidates also emphasized that they had no legal risks while targeting E's legal troubles. Friday's presentation was held ahead of the party's first round of debates set for this weekend, with the candidates divided into two groups of 4. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party has framed the presidential election as a way to end the insurrection scandal and restore the country to normal.
This presidential election is about ending the insurrection and getting the country back on track. What drives change in government and leads to winning the election is the interest and participation of the people.
The DP primary candidates will face off in their first televised debate on Friday evening. The 80-minute debate will begin at 8:30 p.m., covering politics, the economy, foreign affairs, and social issues. Other candidates have shared a common pledge to fully establish Sejong City, located within Chungcheongdo provinces, as South Korea's administrative capital, proposing to relocate the presidential office there. Investing in AI has also been a key focus for the candidates. With these issues on the table, the debate is expected to heat up, especially over these policies. Tensions are also expected over tax policy, with the preliminary candidates Kim Kyung-soo and Kim Dong-yeon supporting tax hikes in contrast to Lee Jae-myung. Shin-Young, Arirang News.
South Korea has rolled out its first supplementary budget in 3 years, totaling 12.2 trillion Korean won, or $8.4 billion. This was approved Friday during an emergency cabinet meeting chaired by acting President Han Duck-soo. Aimed at responding to urgent national needs, the extra budget will be directed towards wildfire recovery, disaster preparedness, and boosting trade and AI competitiveness. It will also ramp up support for small businesses, for vulnerable groups hit hard by recent economic shocks. A total of 93 projects across 14 ministries have been selected for immediate execution of such plans this year. To finance this newly proposed budget, Seoul will tap into $2.9 billion in reserves and raise the remaining amount by issuing bonds. The government will submit the plan to the National Assembly early next week for approval. South Korea and the U.S. joint large-scale air drill, the Freedom Flag, began its 2-week journey this week. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung had a chance to get a closer look.
Fighter jets fly through the air, making thunderous sounds. This as part of South Korea and the U.S.'s large-scale joint air power exercise, the Freedom Flag at Gwangju Air Base. Held 2 times in a year, combining Korea flying training and vigilant defense, this over 2-week journey began on Thursday. Aiming to advance combined air power capabilities while improving interoperability between pilots from both countries, the 24-hour operating mission planning cell organizes the exercise for pilots to embark on their missions. Approximately 1,100 personnel joined the drill, and more than 90 aircraft, including unmanned aerial vehicles such as U.S MQ-9, take part in the event.
This drill will serve as a chance to further strengthen the combined defense posture and enhance our joint response capabilities against various threats on future battlefields.
Another notable part is that the drill will also be based on complex scenarios against a high-level simulated threat involving an advanced stealth jet. This is a U.S. Marine Corps F-35B, one of the U.S. stealth fighter jets that came from Japan. Along with RK F-35As, these 5th-generation jets will play the role of Red Air enemy aircraft for the first time during the exercise.
By putting a stealth fighter, our most capable, on the red side, it gives our pilots, our air battle managers, everyone involved, a more difficult problem to try and solve. So by going against a capable threat, we're just enhancing our own capability through these missions.
By carrying out high-level air-to-air combat missions and working side by side, South Korea and the U.S. expect bolstered trust building upon the alliance. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Gwangju.
Meanwhile, the Korean Army announced today that it successfully completed nighttime maritime shooting exercises off the eastern coast of Gangwon-do province. Over 300 personnel supported by key assets such as K-9 howitzers and artillery detection radar participated in the 2-day exercise that concluded on Thursday. Led by the 3rd Corps in the region, the drills emphasized the country's commitment to counter any provocation, day or night. The Army stressed its commitment to a strong defense posture through continuous real-world training. Over in the U.S., President Donald Trump has shown confidence on reaching a trade deal with China, saying it's just weeks away as other countries line up to negotiate tariffs. Meanwhile, Washington also rolled out new port fees targeting Chinese ships, potentially a win for Korean shipbuilders. Our Shin Se-byuk has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he believes trade negotiations with China will be done over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Oh, we're going to make a deal. We'll have a deal. I think we're going to make a very good deal with China. I think that you will see we'll make a very good deal with China.
During an executive order signing ceremony on Thursday, Trump said the U.S. is in talks with China, adding that Beijing had reached out several times. Earlier the same day, during his meeting with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Trump also brushed off concerns about China allying with Southeast Asian nations to counter U.S. tariffs, adding that, quote, nobody can compete with Washington. Meanwhile, in a move to curb China's influence in the global shipbuilding and shipping sectors and promote U.S.-built vessels, Washington announced new port fees targeting Chinese ships. The U.S. Trade Representative's office said Thursday that port entry fees will be imposed on China's shipping companies, firms operating Chinese-built ships, and foreign-made car carriers. The fees will be introduced gradually starting October 14th, 180 days after the announcement. The rate will begin at $50 per net tonnage and rise annually to reach $140 per ton by 2028. Industry watchers say the move is expected to benefit South Korean shipbuilders, which compete directly with China. Until now, many shipping companies have opted for more affordable Chinese-built vessels, but with the added cost burden, orders may shift towards Korean shipyards. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
In related news, Trump snapped back at Fed Chair Jerome Powell a day after the central banker warned of potential economic consequences such as inflation in the face of sweeping tariffs. However, national banks around the world appear to be on the same page as Powell. Our Isingjae reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump continued to increase the pressure on U.S. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell on Thursday, stressing that he should lower interest rates. He also said Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. Trump's comments on Powell came a day after the U.S. Fed chair warned of potential economic consequences from U.S. tariff policies, saying they would likely generate higher inflation and slower growth. Trump also responded to a reporter's comment at the Oval Office on the same day that Powell said he wouldn't leave his post even if told to by the U.S. leader.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
However, Powell's concerns appear to have been echoed by other central banks around the world. This includes the European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde, who said the sharp increase in tensions in international trade and the resulting uncertainty are likely to reduce exports in the Eurozone and lower growth. World Bank President Ajay Banga also expressed his concerns over Trump's tariff policies earlier this week, stressing that tariff hikes create conflicts that result in lower transparency and growth. International organizations are also warning of an economic slowdown. The World Trade Organization said international trade volumes will decrease this year, while the International Monetary Fund said that there will be a notable downward revision in the new economic outlook report to be released next week. Isingjae, Arirang News.
A critical minerals deal may finally be sealed between the U.S. and Ukraine amid efforts to ensure a ceasefire to halt Russia's aggression against Kyiv. Our Pyongyang reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Thursday that Washington and Kyiv could sign a minerals and economic cooperation deal as early as next week.
Well, we have a minerals deal, which I guess is going to be signed on Thursday, Scott, next Thursday, soon. And I assume they're going to live up to the deal, so we'll see. But we have a deal.
While Treasury Secretary Scott Benson later clarified the likely signing date as April 26th, the agreement appears close to finalization. Later the same day, Ukraine's first deputy prime minister and economy minister Yulia Sviridenko announced on X that Ukraine and the U.S. had signed a memorandum of intent. Although she did not mention a minerals deal directly, she wrote that the memorandum would pave the way for economic cooperation and Ukraine's reconstruction, adding that the final agreement would benefit both nations. When asked about Russia's response to a ceasefire proposal, Trump said he expected a reply soon and reaffirmed his desire to end the war.
We'll see what that will be. We're going to be hearing from them this week, very shortly actually, and we'll see. But we want it to stop. We want the death and the killing to stop.
Meanwhile, Ukraine and the U.S. joined Germany, France, and the U.K. for high-level talks in France to discuss ending the war. The participants expressed support for Trump's peace efforts and discussed steps toward a lasting peace, including a full ceasefire, deployment of multinational troops, and stronger security guarantees for Ukraine. The five nations are set to reconvene in London the following week to move toward a comprehensive end to the Russia-Ukraine war. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
U.S. military airstrikes on Yemen's Ras Isa fuel port on Thursday killed at least 38 people and injured over 100. That's according to media affiliated with the Iran-backed Houthi militants. While U.S. Central Command did not comment on the casualty figures, it stated that the strikes were aimed at cutting off the funding and resources to the Houthis. If confirmed, this would mark one of the deadliest attacks under the Trump administration, since the U.S. launched its biggest military operation in the Middle East last month. The United States has pledged to continue its strikes until the Houthis halt their attacks on Red Sea shipping routes. And time now for our weekly arts and culture segment. That means we have our culture correspondent Song Yujin in the studio with us. Welcome, Yujin.
Happy Friday, Eunji.
So, Yujin, what do you have for us today?
Well, Eunji, I'm sure you've heard of this popular saying in Korea, which is food is medicine. And I think that temple food is one example, which is a cuisine that's steeped in mindfulness, simplicity, and centuries of care. And actually, temple food is on track to being recognized as part of the nation's cultural legacy. Here's the full story. Grinding, chopping, boiling. Here, cooking is more than just technique. It's meditation in motion. These colorful ingredients are being transformed into Korean temple cuisine. Soybean soup, cucumber kimchi, and wild greens over noodles. Each dish reflects core Buddhist values, respect for life, and a ban on 5 pungent vegetables believed to disturb inner peace.
I've learned so much, not just about recipes, but about food itself. I used to think vegetarian dishes lacked flavor, but temple food is delicious. It feels light, comforting, and good for your health.
I never really knew how to cook with wild greens, but now I finally understand how to use ingredients I've always seen at the market.
And Korean temple food, like this, has finally received the recognition it deserves. Because last month, the Korea Heritage Service announced plans to designate it as a national intangible cultural heritage, literally food for thought. The agency cited the cuisine's historical continuity, cultural uniqueness, and its ability to evolve with the times. Since the introduction of Buddhism to ancient Korea during the Three Kingdoms period, temple food has been passed down through generations.
In Northeast Asia, especially Korea, monks have traditionally farmed, foraged, and cooked their meals, creating a distinct culinary tradition. Korean temple food centers not only on vegetables and grains, but also on fermented foods like jang and kimchi. That's why it's increasingly seen as both nourishing and in harmony with nature.
Because temple cuisine has long been practiced across Korea, the cultural core of Korean Buddhism spent years systematizing its philosophy, core ingredients, and preparation methods. The upcoming heritage designation is the result of that effort. And next, the Buddhist community is setting its sights on a larger goal, becoming a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. A tradition that treats food as medicine and the body as a temple, now preparing to take its place on the global stage.
So, Yujin, let's start with the big question. When will the Korea Heritage Service announce its final decision?
Right. So the Korea Heritage Service, or KHS in short, it must make and announce its final decision within 30 days since its initial designation notice. And I want to mention that during this period, the agency gathers feedback both from the public via its official website and from industry insiders in related fields. And the final evaluation is made by the National Intangible Cultural Heritage Committee. And since the announcement was made on March 21st, we can expect the official results sometime next week.
Right, and let's go over and take a closer look at Korea's temple food culture. And you visited some cooking classes related to that. What was that like?
Well, so the first class that I was visited was more of a hobby level, so it was open to a wide range of applicants, for example, those in their 20s and also those in their 50s and 60s. But the second class that was featured in my report, it was more of a more specialized class because this class was prepping participants for the Korean Temple Food Specialist Certification, which is an exam that is held twice a year. Now, over 500 people have passed this exam since it was first introduced in 2015, and it includes both written and practical exams. And many of the students there were motivated by health reasons or had plans to turn their training into a business, especially as demand for temple food continues to grow globally.
Right, and it's interesting how they have an official certificate for these temple food chefs, and it seems like the interest is spreading globally.
Right.
And for our viewers overseas, is there any way they can enjoy these type of food?
Well, I asked that same question to the cultural core of Korean Buddhism, and they said that they have been and they have plans to work with overseas Korean cultural centers to offer lectures and cooking classes. So our viewers might want to check that out. And if you're actually planning to visit Korea anytime soon, I highly recommend stopping by the Korean Temple Food Center and the Institute of Korean Temple Cuisine, Hyangjoksegae, both near Anguk Station on Line 3, because there you can explore the history of Korean temple food and even try making some dishes yourself. And good news is that both institutions offer English language websites.
All right, thank you for your report today, Yujin, as always.
It was a pleasure.
And art tech is an emerging field that brings together art and science, making it more accessible and enjoyable to the public. Our Park Kwon-woo takes you to the scene.
Home Sweet Home, a popular song by K-pop star G-Dragon that captured fans around the world, has now gone beyond Earth. G-Dragon made history last week when he became the first K-pop artist to send music into space. He shared what that meant to him with great expectations.
자세한 주소는 아니지만 받을 사람이 불분명하겠지만 누군가에게 보내놓으면 계속해서 떠돌다가 누군가에게 또 닿을 수도 있다는 그런 좀 기대, 희망, 설레임이 가장 크고.
The beaming of the music into space was made possible by KAIST, Korea's leading science and technology institute, using its satellite technology. Radio waves once carried music through the air. Now satellite antennas are sending it into space. K-pop is no longer just a genre, but it may become a new form of communication with the unknown. An official from the institute spoke about the project's significance.
This is meaningful as it fuses technology, media art, and K-pop. It lets us dream about distant space and even the possibility of unknown life.
He added that while Korea may be a relative latecomer in the space industry, this kind of cultural and technological experiment could unlock new possibilities, like one day creating art inspired by signals from space. The project also involved a media artist who made visual artwork to accompany the song into space. And he said this project represents more than just sending art.
We might even gain a K-pop fan out there. But more than that, this is about transmitting the emotional voice of humanity into space. It wasn't just sound or signal, but human emotion. And when we get to meet the unknown, art could be our most powerful language to communicate.
He said this is only the beginning, with more art tech experiments merging pop culture with science and technology already in the pipeline. And as those ideas take flight, a new creative lab may just be the opening in what's now called the era of art tech. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
Hyundai Motor was awarded the most best brands on the U.S. News and World Report's 2025 Best Hybrid and Electric Cars list for the second year in a row. According to Hyundai on Thursday, the company clinched 3 prestigious titles, with its Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, and Tucson hybrid models, securing top spots in their respective categories. The awards recognize the top electric vehicles in their categories, with over 100 vehicles evaluated across 10 categories.
From yesterday, high temperatures continue throughout the country. Around the Gyeongsang-do provinces, which is shown as red on the map, daytime temperatures rose to nearly 30 degrees Celsius today, feeling like early summer already. The temperatures will drop a bit with rain across the country tomorrow. From northern parts of Gyeonggi-do province and northern parts of Gangwon-do province tomorrow morning, rain clouds will spread across the country from the afternoon into the night. Loud rain is expected in the central parts of the country with gusty winds and thunder and lightning. Tomorrow morning, Seoul and Gyeongju will start off at 14 degrees, Daejeon, Gwangju, and Daegu at 16 degrees. Highs will move up to 19 degrees in Seoul and Busan, 25 degrees in Daejeon, Gwangju, and Gyeongju. For the time being, warm temperatures of around 20 degrees will continue. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. But stay tuned for a panel session coming up next.